Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today we are making a spelt flour crackers, and I have to tell you a little story. During a quarantine I went to the store looking for all-purpose flour. There were none available, and on the shelf there it was, a spelt flour. I guess nobody else wanted it, so I grabbed it and I figured out I will come up with something where I can use the spelt flour for, and I've decided to make crackers. The reason I'm making my own crackers because, as you can see, the store-bought crackers usually fall apart when you try to spread the cheese on it. But look at this cracker, the one from the spelt flour. It is dense and it's very flavorful, and you can really smear that cheese on that cracker and it will not fall apart. So let's get started with our recipe. But first, let me tell you what spelt is. Spelt is an ancient wheat grain, and it has been cultivated since biblical time. Spelt is not a gluten-free grain, but if you are allergic to gluten, you might want to try it. It has a very low percentage, and it is a very healthy grain with a nutty taste. The recipe is very simple and you can apply it to any type of flour. Is 1.5 cups of spelt flour, half a cup of water, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and it's optional. You can either add or don't add salt, but I added 1/4 teaspoon. You're also gonna need a rolling pin, a pastry brush, and I have maybe 2 tablespoons of roasted sesame seeds, an assortment of dry herbs to your taste, some molten salt, and we're gonna need a tablespoon of olive oil and a toothpick. Molten salt is a very luxurious salt and considered to be as a finishing salt, so it's usually sprinkled on steaks or caramel. So molten salt considered less bitter, less salty than other salts. And I hope you guys don't mind me giving you a little history of each ingredient. And if you want your crackers to be crispy, you need a baking stone or any type of bakeware that you can preheat in your oven and then drop your crackers on it. And you're also gonna need a parchment paper. In a large mixing bowl, add 1.5 cups of spelt flour and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda added to the recipe so you get the little tiny bubbles on top of your crackers. Then in a mixing cup, add your water, salt, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then pour your wet ingredients over your dry ingredients and start forming the dough. At first your dough is gonna appear very dry, but just keep kneading it until you gather all the flour, and you will see how your dough forms and it will not stick to your hands anymore due to the high content of oil in it. Then just knead it slightly and we're gonna let this dough rest. Wrap your dough in a Serrano wrap and then just form a disc and flatten it a little bit. And this dough has to rest in the fridge for 1 hour. And after that, we can work with it. Preheat your baking stone in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. After your dough has rested, as you can see, the texture of it has changed a little bit. It has these little tiny bubbles inside of it, and it's much more easy to work with now. We're gonna cut this piece of dough into 12 identical pieces, and it's easier to wedge it out, and then you can form a little balls out of each wedge. And if they're not the same, it's okay. I mean, the crackers are not going to be the same. Big deal. So they're going to look more artisan. Keep your dough covered while you're working with 2 pieces at a time. We're going to sprinkle a little bit of that spelt flour on a table surface or a silicone mat, and we're going to roll it out very thin. It's going to be 1 1/16 of an inch thin. So if you put your hand on your cracker, you can almost see your hand through that cracker. That's how thin it is. We're gonna place it on the parchment paper, and that's when we need our toothpick, which is gonna put some holes in our crackers. We're gonna brush them with olive oil and sprinkle them with some sesame seeds. I also gonna sprinkle some of the dry herbs. I have rosemary and thyme in there, and sprinkle it with molten salt. Then we're gonna pat it, and we're gonna place it on the cutting board. Would be easier for us to transfer it on our baking stone. As you can see, I chose this shape for my crackers, but if you like them a little bit smaller, you can cut them with a pastry cutter into strips, and then cut strips into squares, and then apply your toppings. But I think this shape is gonna look so much more interesting. Bake your crackers on the hot stone for 8 minutes or until they're golden brown. Then you can take them out and continue baking other crackers, maybe 2 at a time or as many as your stone can fit. Now we're gonna compare store-bought crackers to the ones I make. On the left is a gluten-free cracker, has little holes in it, and on the right use your regular table cracker and that has little bubbles on it. And here's my cracker. Look at this. It's got little bubbles on it. It's pretty crispy and has very tasty toppings on it, and that molten salt is gonna make it very delicious. And even if my cheese is right out of the fridge, is not very soft yet, as you can see, I can smear it easily on the cracker, and the cracker does not fall apart. And look what happens with a store-bought cracker. It just simply falls apart. You can store your homemade crackers in a brown bag for up to 2 weeks. Don't put it in a plastic bag, otherwise they will go soft. I hope you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye!